Hi, welcome to CJ Does. Today I'm gonna do a little video on Zeerocks the Goblin, who is a character I am playing in the D&D campaign over at Tabletop Bob. I just switched over to this character for a little bit of a almost two-shot part of the campaign where our party has found itself trapped in the mountains. I've used this character one other time, and we are in the middle of just exploring the mountains where my main character, Edmund Brycine, friend to elf and man, wink, has found himself incapacitated for a bit of time, and Zeerocks has taken over his position in the party. Not really his position, but he's taken over a spot in the party where he will be leading the party through the mountains. So I thought this would be a good time to take a look at his character sheet, see what he's capable of, and if you guys wanted to see what Zeerocks is up to and what he can do and how he is in combat, this is a good opportunity to get some insight on what his character is like. So let's go over to D&D Beyond, where I have him. Okay, so here is Zeerocks' character sheet. You can see his stats up here. He has a strength of -2, his ability score modifier of -2 because he has a 6 strength. I did roll for stats for this character. I rolled a pretty poor 6 in there, so that was a immediately dump into strength because he is a ranger, where his two main stats are going to be wisdom and dexterity. Wisdom for his spellcasting modifier and dexterity for his attacks and defense and his initiative and things like that. Next, you see he has a dexterity of 20. He's a level 5 ranger, so he's gotten 1 ability score increase, and he's gone from an 18 to a 20 there. His constitution of 16, his intelligence with a +3 modifier, his intelligence of 9, giving him a -1. He is a goblin after all. He's probably not too smart. A wisdom of +1 with a 12, so that he can cast a little bit of magic and he knows a couple things about the wilderness. And his charisma of +1 because he does like to talk a lot, so hoping that when he talks a lot, he can kind of prove himself and get his way throughout the dangers that are out there. Especially as a goblin, he needs to really kind of talk his way out of a lot of situations. So that's kind of where he is on that. Walking speed, current hit points, 34, max of 49. He has currently 34 hit points. He's been in a little bit of a fight if you've watched Tabletop Bob. And then all of his proficiencies and his skills here. He has a expertise in perception. He has a +7 in perception, and I'll go over his features and traits and how he got that a little bit later. He is proficient with a flute. Part of his backstory is that he learned to play flute from his goblin wife, who was murdered by a party of adventurers, but he doesn't hold that too much against them. And that was much further along ago than the start of this campaign. Let's go over to features and traits. He is a ranger, so we've got a bunch of class features here. So he's got Deft Explorer, which is one of the new ranger features that replaces favored terrain, which is that he gets at first level, he has learned Orcish and Gnomish as extra languages, and he also has expertise in the perception skill. So that's the first level of Canny. And then next he has hit points and then favored foe, which is another addition from Tasha's, where he at first level, when he attacks, add an additional d4 to the damage on all of the attacks against a specific enemy that he has marked. It's similar, but a little bit weaker than the Hunter's Mark spell, but it does allow you to not have to take Hunter's Mark as a spell. Then we move down to his normal proficiencies, and then as a fighting style, another Tasha's thing he grabbed here is the thrown weapon fighting style. You'll see him use darts as his weapon of choice. He throws them from behind his shield for his additional armor, and he adds the +2 to the damage roll, so he does a 1d4 +7, because it's 5 for his dexterity, and then +2 from the thrown weapon fighting style. So one of the things is that it allows you to draw and throw the weapon as part of the attack. So normally in Dungeons and Dragons, you are not allowed to draw a weapon if you already have a weapon drawn. You can't stow and draw a weapon in the same turn. You have to drop a weapon, which is a free action, and then remember to pick it up later, or you have to continue attacking with the weapons you already have in your hands. But with thrown weapon fighting, you have, say, a dagger and a sword in your hand, you can throw the dagger, draw another dagger, and throw it as a second attack. And then moving on, we have our spell casting, which is our DC of 12 and our modifier of +4, proficiency of +3. Primal Awareness, learned 2 extra spells, Speak with Animals and Beast Sense. Came from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, extra spells. Additional abilities, always great to have. And then as a ranger archetype, we chose Hunter as his ranger archetype for the extra ability of doing a little bit more damage with his attack. So he has Colossus Slayer, which gives you an additional 1d8 of damage if it's below its maximum hit point. So this is really only good against an enemy that's already been hit once, but at level 5, we have 2 attacks. So the first attack, if it does some damage, the second attack will possibly have the Colossus Slayer added bonus damage to it. So we have here, this is our extra attack, and we have our ability score improvement. We increased our dexterity and our constitution score. And then for our racial traits as a goblin, we get 3 really fun, really great abilities, which is Dark Vision, which a lot of races have, but Fear of the Small is an additional racial ability from the goblin race that allows you to do additional damage equal to your level at no extra action, but only once per short rest. And a short rest, it recharges pretty regularly. So at level 5, it does an additional 5 damage. And then Nimble Escape, giving you the bonus action to disengage or hide. It's a great ability if you're a ranged character like Zeerocks is. If you find yourself trapped or surrounded or with enemies that are too close to you, he can always bonus action disengage, move back, and then attack like normal with his 2 extra attacks. So that's his abilities there. So let's look at some of his spells. We'll go over to the spells. So for the spells, we have Absorb Elements, which is a reaction spell. Hunter's Mark, which is a concentration. Most rangers take. Zeerocks is not really one to use this one because he has the Favored Foe ability. Speak with Animals, which is I believe he got from, let's go back, we did get that from Primal Awareness from Tasha's. And finally, Zephyr Strike. Zephyr Strike is in a spell that does additional damage. It allows you to do an additional d8 of damage, gives you a lot of extra speed, and is also a bonus action that's great to cast. Lets you move, gives you advantage, gives you extra damage. It's a lot of fun to have. And then finally, our level 2 spells, we have Upcast of Absorb Elements and Hunter's Mark, and always Animal Messenger from the ability, I believe we took Animal Messenger, and Beast Sense is from Tasha's Animal Messenger, just so that if Zeerocks needs to send a message somewhere, he can always find a small creature that he can send off to get to someone. And let's go over to our actions. So this is where the meat of everything's going to be, where we see what Zeerocks can do in a fight. So he has his dart that does 1d4 plus 7 damage and hits with a plus 8 on the d20 and has a range of 20 and disadvantage up to 60. He gets 2 attacks per action, 2 darts he can throw. Because of the fighting style, he can throw a dart and then draw another one. Short sword, that's kind of just a basic short sword in case he needs a melee attack, in case he's either run out of darts or he just wants to get in close and attack, because there is one spell, the Absorb Element spell, requires a melee attack. So he does have that extra ability to use that short sword if he has to get in close and do something. So let's look at what he does on a turn. So on a turn, basically he is meant to throw his darts, which is going to do 1d8, or I'm sorry, 1d4 plus 7, and then as a part of the attack, he can add his favored foe, which is going to add an additional d4 of damage, and he can mark that foe and always do that. If the enemy has already been damaged, he does an additional 1d8 of damage for his Colossus Slayer. So he does 2d4 plus 1d8 plus 7. And on top of that, he could, if he chooses, if the roll is high enough, add his Fury of the Small damage, which is an additional 5. So it becomes 2d4 plus 1d8 plus 12 damage. And that's on his possible second attack if he's already damaged it. Otherwise, it's 2d4 plus 7 for his favored foe and dart attack if the creature has not been damaged yet. Another thing he can do on his turn is cast Zephyr Strike as a bonus action, which will then give him advantage on his next attack. So he has a dart attack with a plus 8, 1d4 plus 5, Colossus Slayer for the 1d8 if the creature's been damaged, plus an additional 1d8 from Zephyr Strike. So he can do 1d4 plus 2d8 plus 5 damage. And again, if he hasn't used his Fury of the Small, or 1d4 plus 7 plus 2d8 plus his Fury of the Small, which is an additional 5 damage. Another way that this could go down, his other way of possibly doing it, is if someone near him casts a elemental damage spell, say a firebolt, fireball, acid spray, something like that, he can use his Absorb Elements reaction on his turn, which he could use his second level one to roll 2d6 and then reduce damage to himself, and then additionally now add damage to his attack. So he casts Absorb Elements on some other creature's turn, taking elemental damage, reducing it, now adding it to his next attack. He then can cast, say, Hunter's Mark on a creature as a bonus action. He would then draw his short sword because Absorb Elements requires a melee weapon attack. So he has a short sword melee weapon attack that does plus 8 to hit, and then we'll do 1d6 plus 5 damage, plus another possible 2d6 elemental damage, and then his Hunter's Mark doing an additional 1d6 damage from that. So one hit with Absorb Elements and his short sword with Hunter's Mark can do up to 4d6 plus 5, and then add again, if he still has it available, another 5 damage from his Fury of the Small. So it's a lot of damage output, 4d6 plus a possible 10 damage on just his first attack with the Hunter's Mark, Absorb Elements, short sword, and it's pretty impressive, I think. So that's how that went down. And then let's look at his ability modifier. So let's go over to the character editor and we'll show how he was created. So here's all of his stats from becoming a ranger and his ability scores. So we started with a 6, 17, 15, 9, 11, and 12 were our rolls that we got when we created the character. And here you can see we put them down. The 6 stayed in strength. We used our 17 as our base score. We gave ourselves a racial bonus of +2 and then an ability score improvement at level 4 for an additional 1. So we have a +20 here. And then Constitution, we have our normal 16 and we added 1 from our ability score improvement at level 4. And then our Wisdom started at 12. And with our racial bonus, we added a 1 here to bring that up to 13. And that, we have a description. He was an outlander, took stealth and performance and flute. He's never been, I mean, as a goblin, he's never been really part of society as a whole. So coming from goblin society is where he's an outlander from. And his equipment, so we have his darts. We have 21. He started with 22. We have 21 darts, a shield, a short sword, studded leather armor from his starting gold, and just some other stuff that he had laying around. Disguise kit so that he can kind of sit around in polite society, a pouch to hold his darts, tinder boxes, torches, his totem for as a druidic focus so that he can cast spells. And that is Zeerocks the Goblin. So I hope you guys enjoyed that look at Zeerocks the Goblin's character sheet for Tabletop Bob's D&D campaign over on Tabletop Bob. Hope to see you guys there and checking out our Icewind Dale campaign. It's really getting pretty exciting right now. We are closing in on one of the big bads, I think. I'm not really sure what's going on myself. Tabletop Bob has been doing a great job of DMing and keeping all the secrets pretty close to the chest. So we're really excited about everything that's building and coming up in the channel. Check us out, youtube.com, search Tabletop Bob, and you'll find him right away. I'm CJ, and this is what CJ does.